Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Robot Damashii, or Robot Spirits DELPHINIUM, which is part of the Darling in the Franxx series of figures. That's why it says side Franxx at the top. This is number 244, and I don't really know much about this show at all. They sent me a review sample of this guy, this girl, this robot. It's something, and so I'm going to review it for you, but it's a cool enough design. It's white and blue, so top marks from me. End of review. No, it's got some things to talk about, so let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. This figure stands just about 16.5 centimeters, which makes it pretty close to 6.5 inches, right around there. Now, before we get into the review, I do want to make a quick note, guys. From this point forward, I will be implementing some sort of a rating system at the end of each review, so make sure you stick around to the end so you can see what the final verdict is, aside from my general ramblings about the various qualities and attributes of the figure. Okay, so the first thing to note about this thing is that it is painted pretty well. All the white parts, as far as I can tell, except for these little details right here on the boobages and on the stomach, they're all molded in white, so that's a good thing. Painting white is no bueno, and molding it is very bueno, so this is good. It's nice and clean. Most of the blue, in fact, is molded as well. We do have a little bit of the light blue painted on, and for the most part, it's pretty clean. There are some spots with some bleeding, but it looks pretty good. The stripes down here look really good. They're almost perfect, so that's awesome. And then the little details around the chest and the face, you know, they're definitely clean enough. They're definitely well within the lines, no pun intended. Okay, I intended it a little bit, of the Robot Damashii line, so that's okay. You can see the gray in here, pretty clean as well, so that's pretty good. Not a ton of accessories, but we do have some. We do have this display stand, which does have the line work on it, which is nice, and it does have a peg that she can peg her feet or foot onto. It also has a socket for the display stand, which it does not come with, which is like the biggest annoyance I've ever seen. A display stand, and it costs them too much to include the upright. You have to have a separate display stand to use it for anything other than the foot peg. That pisses me off a whole bunch. But it does come with an adapter for the display stand, so you can actually hold her up with it if you have one separate, because it's not included with this figure. Yes, it pisses me off. We do have 3 different face plates. We have the kind of neutral face that comes on in the package, the one that looks kind of either angry or scared, and then the one that's yelling. We have 6 total hands, the 2 loose hands that come out in the package, 2 fist hands, and then 2 gripping hands. And then lastly, we have these javelin, spear, slash blade, pike thingies, which are actually pretty cool looking, and they make the figure a little bit more dynamic, so I do like that. As far as articulation goes on this figure, it is fairly basic. We have a ball socket in the top of the head, and then a ball socket at the bottom of the neck, so essentially a double ball peg, though it's 2 ball pegged in the same direction rather than at the opposite ends of each other. Functionally, it's the same thing, it's fine. Shoulders, again, just a single basic ball peg. It doesn't take that much to get this figure moving, so I think it's okay. You get pretty good range out of everything for the most part. You do have a bicep swivel up here, though it is very ugly. That's kind of just due to the design of the figure. Not much you could do to get around that, except for maybe add the swivel down here at the elbow, but for all I know, it's supposed to have that cut based on the actual animation. I don't know. Single jointed elbow, which does work very nicely, and look, it looks good enough, so that's okay. And then the wrists are just your standard basic ball pegs. For the torso, we have, it seems like it's just a single ball peg. It moves like it, and it doesn't have the best range, but you can lean it forward and back a little bit side to side, and then a little bit of rotation. It's not the best range considering how basic the design is. It's just your average diaphragm joint, which is even less difficult to do than a regular human one because it's particularly narrow, which means it's fairly round where the 2 parts meet, so it should be able to rotate very nicely, but it doesn't really seem to want to do it, so that's a bit of a bummer. This skirt piece thing, whatever, has a ball peg on either side for each chunk. They can move independently, and then hopefully I can show you in some way. I can't really get in there. You can kind of see that gray bar right there. That's kind of like a V-shaped bar, so they're both connected to that, and it wiggles around on its own. So they move around a little bit, not a ton. For the hips, this figure's got too much clutter. you have your hinged ball pegs, so they do move up and down a little bit, and then you just have your standard ball socket on the end of that with a thigh swivel. So what kind of range do we get? Well, if we move those thruster things, you can bring the leg up pretty far, but it does, as you can see, rotate the foot out to the side a little bit. So not a ton of range, practically speaking. Going out to the side, very minimal. For the knee joint, single jointed knee, decent enough range, not terrible looking. This piece doesn't move, no toe joint or anything, and then we just have a ball peg on the back here. This is mostly for looks because it doesn't really reach down in an effective way. You're going to want to definitely use the display stand to balancer. Though it can be done, it is particularly tricky, and odds are she's going to end up taking a shelf dive. So it's a fairly basic figure. As far as I can tell, it seems fairly accurate, and it's got a decent enough shelf appeal. I'm going to go ahead and recommend it. It's pretty cool. It gets, let's say, 3 robot ladies out of 5. I think that's probably an appropriate review. I mean, it could be a lot more involved. I think the hips could work a little bit better. Shoulders could have a little bit better range. You know, little things like that. But overall, it's pretty decent. So yeah, I think if you're into the show, you'll probably like the figure well enough. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I do have new videos up very regularly. It's usually just about every single day, but right now we're in a bit of a dry spell for releases, so we haven't had too many reviews going on, but we do have, when reviews are not happening, we still do have the sculpting live streams and the video game live streams, and as many other regular videos as I can get up. So make sure you come back for that, and in the meantime, keep collecting.